Welcome to Web API Design Patterns. In this slide, we're going to see two important patterns when it comes to Web API. One is a CQRS and a Mediator. The combination of these two patterns is just nothing but pure love. Overview, we're going to see what CQRS pattern is. We're going to see what Mediator pattern is. And we're going to see what MediatR is. MediatR is something with a .NET library, which actually gives, which way can combine the CQRS and Mediator into one platform. And MediatR is a library which will actually help us to facilitate that. So code and project layer transformation. Just looking at Spaghetti, this Spaghetti looks fantastic. It's well garnished. It looks great. At end user, I'm very happy with it. But as a developer, I don't know what's inside the Spaghetti. I really don't know where the Spaghetti starts and where the Spaghetti ends. So I need some special tools. I need a fork and knife to drill through it and find out what's inside the Spaghetti. But the question here is, as a developer, should I actually use special tools to see what's inside the Spaghetti? The answer is definitely a big no. So let's see how you can transform the Spaghetti into a more readable format. So you add CQRS and you add Mediator, and this gets transformed into this wonderful, well-layered lasagna. So looking at this lasagna, I know how many layers are there. I know what's in between the layers. I know what's topped with. I know what's garnished with. So it's very clean. So I don't need any tools to drill into it to find what's inside the lasagna because it's very visible. This is what we'll be aiming when it comes to a code and the project layer. So let's quickly dive into how a typical Spaghetti project layer and code looks like. You have a customer controller. You've got a customer get endpoint, which gets a customer based on the ID provided. So basically, it just goes and calls customer service. There's a big model there. The model has got a logic to get the customers based on the ID, where it can go and look into data stores, or it could be in memory, whatever it is. But we're not going to talk about where it's going to get it from, but we're just going to talk about how it's structured. So next one, you would say there'll be get accounts for the individual customer. This is typically called an account service, and you have a big model again, and then basically it has a logic to go and get a list of accounts for the particular customer. Same with products. It goes and calls a product service. It gets a list of products for the particular customer. Let's say you go to post. A new customer comes in and you want to create a new customer record in database. What you do is you just go and do a post in the customer service. This all looks okay, but there's a two fundamental design flaw here. The one, the big chunk of model you have. This model has got logic for everything. It's got a logic for a CRUD operation. It's got a read, write, update for database. It may have a logic for logging. It may have other logics. We may have logic for model mapping and things like that. So this has to be broken down into a manageable model. I'll tell you why. And the next big flaw is the zigzag over here. So if you see this zigzag, it's quite confusing. It's not clear. So just imagine this is just for one controller, and when you're going to have multiple controllers, and you're going to have and you could end up with multiple services, and sometimes you may actually even end up with intercommunication between services, and you may also end up with circular dependencies, and this is not good. This is typical Spaghetti. So how can we transfer the Spaghetti into lasagna? Okay, the first thing you do is the CQRS pattern, the command query responsible segregation pattern. So what is it? So it's nothing but it's an abstract of CQRS pattern. CQRS was first introduced by B. Mayer in his object-oriented software construction book. B. Mayer states that every method should be an either query or a command. CQRS goes a little bit further, saying that this query and command should be an individual objects. So now let's see how this Spaghetti could be transferred into lasagna using a CQRS. You've got same customer controller here. You've got a get API, get method for the API, which gets a customer based on ID. So this is basically get is it's normally immutable. Now all immutable calls a query model. So you're just going to query the data and you're going to get it back. That's it. So that is all you're going to do when it comes to immutable model. The next one is going to be, I'm going to divide this control into two, mutable and immutable. Next one is going to be purely immutable. So in this case, when it comes to immutable, you're going to have a command model. So you're going to pass some data in, you're going to change those data, and then you're going to get the values back if needed. So all this mutable functionality is wrapped in the command model. Also, from its name, you're actually commanding something. You're telling the API to do something. So now this huge chunk of model which you saw in the spaghetti slide now has been broken down into two individual manageable models. So the next thing we have to think about is the zigzag layer. So this zigzag layer, how can this be resolved? This can be resolved by using a mediator. So what's mediator? Mediator defines an object that encapsulates how a set of objects interacts. Mediator promotes loose coupling by keeping objects from referring to each other explicitly, and it lets you vary their interaction independently. In short, mediator is an intermediate object which prevents direct communication between objects. Now let's see how this mediator can be introduced into the spaghetti pattern and how that could be changed into lasagna pattern. Right, so now we have this typical lasagna which we saw where the models have been divided into query and command. Now it's time to solve the zigzag. So let's see how this is going to be solved. First, the query and command are being actually encapsulated into a mediator. And this mediator talks to respective handlers. In this case, it's going to talk to a query handler and it's going to talk to a command handler. So there's a zigzag here. If you see, it's all well structured. You can see like there is no any interaction. So all the logic for the queries are actually embedded in the query handler, and all the logic for the command has been embedded into the command handler. So the models have been divided into small chunks, which basically they have respective handlers which is called the logic. So this handler deal with this small chunks of models. Another big advantage, I would say, going down this route is the first one is input validation. When it comes to input data validation, normally what we do in traditional MVC, we would actually have the validation embedded into the endpoint itself. The first thing you do is we go and check if the input has got valid data, we do the validation, then we start calling the logic. But here, we could actually embed those input validation into your respective handlers. We can use different libraries. One of the most popular libraries used is Fluent Validation, and you can have your validation in just one place. Logs, again, imagine if you go to log all the requests coming in, you go to log in these there's four various methods. But if you if you're going to just remove them, and if you're going to log for your get here, and if you're going to log for all your mutable objects in your command handler, there's only two places you're going to log. So that's basically 4 places have been logged, has been minimized to 2 places. This is again dry. As we know, dry is evil. So this is another advantage of using this pattern. Testing in isolation. This is one thing I really love is you can test all this small model and handlers in isolation. So they are like more manageable testing. The more like small unit testing can be carried out on individual handlers. So this is one of the best thing I would always come across when I'm doing command query, a CQRS pattern with MediatR. Your testing has been made much easier and much flexible and much maintainable as well. For example, in the future, you decide to, for some reason, you decide to not to give customers back and you want to delete your get method completely. All you do is just go and delete the test related to the get method, and you're done. Or if you're going to change some logic inside, all you do is just go to this query handler test, and you're just going to change those tests to compile with the new logic. So its testing is well maintainable with this pattern. Now, MediatR. So MediatR is classic library used in .NET community. So it's written by Jimmy Bogart. Many people know who Jimmy Bogart is. He's author of AutoMapper. So he's written this library which combines CQRS and Mediator pattern and facilitates these two patterns to be combined and used in your C# code. Let's quickly dive into a quick demo. Let's go through the project structure. So we've got source. Let's expand source. We've got core. We've got application and domain. This is web application logic and domain logic sits. The next one's infrastructure. We've got infrastructure and we've got a persistent layer. And finally, we've got presentation layer. This is where the actual API is going to sit. So let's go and start installing NuGet packages. So first thing first, we need to install NuGet package. In our instance, let's type in MediatR is stuff we're looking for. So I've got first package is going to be MediatR package. We can install this. So let's go and install it. Click install. Okay, let's wait for this to finish. Okay, the next one we need dependency injection, which is used as part of IOC. Great, once we've installed it, let's go to the startup project. Let's scroll all the way down somewhere here. Yeah, there you go. So register application instance is what we're looking for. And if you step into it, and this is where we're going to register our MediatR component. So add MediatR, I believe, or Mediator. Yeah, it's MediatR. Right, assembly. So let's first bring this in. Alt Enter, and assembly again. Alt Enter. System reflection is what we want, and get execution assembly. That's a method. Just let's invoke the method. Great. So this is how you install your MediatR component in your IOC. Okay, fantastic. So let's go to the endpoint. So we've got HTTP post. Let's bring in Mediator through dependency injection. So let's type in MediatR, or it's Mediator. It's Mediator, I believe, yes. So let's type in a Mediator. That's it. Alt Enter. Yeah, that's been then Mediator. Oops. Just need to do. It's trying to do initialization using Alt Enter. Let's do it again. There you go. Perfect. So now let's go to HTTP post. Let's do the command first. Type in var results equal to Mediator dot send, I believe. Yes, send. So if you look at this, good object, request object, and you've got, you can pass in the cancellation tokens as well. So in our instance, we'll just do new customer command is what we're after for. And we just pass in the request object, which is a customer. Great. That's what's needed now. Let's go and create a new class. Let's go to application layer. Under the command folder, let's create add a new class. Class name would be customer command. Add. Okay, let's make it public. Okay. Let us at the constructor, and we would actually bring the customer request via constructor, which is what we're passing into the constructor. So Alt Enter again, customer request. That's cool. Yeah, save. Let's do Alt Enter, and oops, this is, yeah, that's fine. So Alt Enter. Okay. Now let us bring in property. Yeah, let's do a quick change there because we need a public property, not the private read only. So let's delete the private read only from there. That's cool. Let's do a bit of cleanup there. So again, finally, this has to be an implementation of iRequest, and this should take in the response type. In answer is going to be customer response at support. We're going to return it back. So let's do again Alt Enter. Let's bring it. That's cool. Nice. So okay, so now if you just go back to the controller and just Alt Enter will actually bring in the customer command namespace. Okay, so this is the customer command we have. So next thing we have to do is create a handler. So let's go to handler folder. It's under the command folder. So class. So it's going to be, I normally name it as like a customer command handler. Different people can name it in different, but the handler is the keyword there. Add. Let's make it public. Great, and it's iRequest handler this time. So this is an implementation of iRequest handler. So it's going to take two things in the type, which the first thing is going to be the actual command itself. It's going to be customer command, and the second one is going to be the response type, which in our case is going to be customer response. Yeah, response. I can just do an Alt Enter. It brings in the namespace. Okay, let's do. Okay, so just implemented the handle here. Okay, let's bring in the repository where we're going to save this customer request. So it's going to be customer repository. Yeah, customer repository. Enter. Okay, just go to customer repository. That's perfect. Okay, again, just using Visual Studio to bring the read-only property there. Okay, so now what we need here is await and customer. Okay, let's go make it async. So just to do it properly. Okay, type in await. So customer repository dot insert. So the insert would normally take in the customer entity. Okay, so we are passing in the customer command itself. So what we need here is we need a mapping layer. So this is basically you're passing in the DTO or whatever the request is into the domain layer. So we don't want to expose our customer domain to the client. So we just have a simple mapping here. So map to domain. Okay. Just trying to keep it very simple for demo purpose. People do use mapping tools to do that. But we're just doing a plain C# mapping here. So in the parameter, I just need a customer command. I'm sorry, I just need a customer request, I believe. Let's type in customer. First name is equal to request dot. Yes, that's a customer command I need, it's not a customer request. Apologies for that. Okay, and just need to change this to customer request. Now if it comes as first name, that's perfect, yeah. And let's do last name mapping as well. So if do last name equal to assign. Oops, it's a customer. It's a request we have to for request dot customer request dot last name. That's perfect. So we've done the mapping. Let's return this. That's cool. So if we go back to our insert, map to domain, and we just pass in the request. That's cool. And let's remove this throw. And if we can look at the insert, so if we've got insert that adds to in-memory customer list, and let's just return the entity back. A real world is going to be a bit different, but just for demo purpose, keep it simple. I'm just returning the entity back. Yeah, just put the customer there, and that we have to do, and go and change the repository as well. So let's change the repository. If a task insert, yeah, that's what we need to do. It's going to be generic, so it's going to be T entity or just T entity we need to enter. Yeah. Cool. So we have changed the repository now. So let's go back to our method, the handle method here. So let's go and the variable customer. Perfect. So now if we need another layer of mapping, so if you've got the domain written type, and now we're going to map from the domain to the actual DTO or the actual response model. So just go and change, just map to response. I've just got copying pasting across, so I'm just going to go and change things here and there. So that is basically a customer response. Yes, that's all we need here. It's perfect. So let us. Okay, sorry, just need to change this to customer type. Okay, maybe just going to do Control RR and just to change the name here as well. It's going to be customer. Apply, and we just need to go and remove this dot customer request, and that should be it. Nice. Okay, cool. So now if we return, type is going to be mapped to response, and you're going to pass in customer. That's all we need to do. And that's written type customer. So yeah, so that's the handle logic has got everything needed there. Let's go back. So that is the entries. We need to return it. What we get back. So since it's going to be HTTP post, let's do created action. So it's going to be action name. So get customer. Well, it's basically add customer, but I'm going to keep it as get customer. And then have new. Let's type in the ID. It's just equal to results dot. Oh, okay, we need to put a wait there. Sorry. That should be results dot ID, I believe. Yeah, and the next one is going to be the actual object. So we could actually just return the results back. That's it. So terminate the statement, and if we just go and remove. Okay, and yeah, let's run this. Let's check a breakpoint and let's see what happens. Okay, it's just running. Okay, let's pull the Swagger. So it's got Open API. So if I've got a few extra things we have here. Authentication token, just ignore it. So we don't have any authentication, and weather forecast is the default one. So let's expand the customer one. This is what we're working on, and click try. Let's enter the ID as 1. The first name, let's type in. Let's give it something simple. Let's type in test first, maybe. Yeah, and let's type in test last. Okay, that's what it needs. Let's run, execute. Okay, there we go. Hits the breakpoint. So let us step into it. So it goes to the customer command, as you see, and let's go further past this one. So if we just go F10, I would say yes. That's going to take us back to the endpoint again. And then if you do a step into it, hopefully hit the handler. There you go, hits the customer handler. So this is where the logic sits. And if you see, I'm just going to just to the breakpoint in the handle itself, and if you just continue, that hits the customer breakpoint. Yeah, and then if you view what's inside, let's take a breakpoint there. Continue, and that's where your customer gets stored in memory, and that's it. There you go. So you've got some response back here, and that is the response, and it's 201, and we've got a response back. So this is how the command works. So that's pretty much it is. So let's stop and let's do the query part, which is immutable part of an web API. So here, so let us start doing the same thing. So let us do wait. Wait. It's same thing as like a mediator dot send new, so customer query this time rather than command. Yeah, and so we're going to pass in the ID. So normally the ID should be a lowercase, but just for demo purpose, I'm trying to keep things very simple. I should be lowercase there. So okay, let's go and create new class customer query. Again, back into application layer and the command. So if you've got a query folder, let's add a class and let's name it as a customer query. Let's make it public. Oops, should remove an extra P there. And again, it's going to be implementation of iRequest, and again, it's going to take in the response type, which is custom response. Yeah, so now let's bring in the property ID, which is what we passed in the constructor. So it's going to be int ID. Yeah, and, just going to this dot ID is equal to ID. Could assign it to the public property. Well, in this case, I'm just going to get the set off. We're not going to set this outside this. So just do a quick cleanup. Okay, so if you've got a customer query, the next thing you do is we have to go and create a handler. So again, it's going to be on the handler folder. We're going to name this class as a customer query handler. So if just type in customer query, query handler. Okay, so that is going to be an implementation of iRequest handler, as we did in the command. But this time it's going to take in customer. Let's do an alt enter. Okay, it's a capital R there. Let's do an alt enter. Okay, let's make it public. Just do a quick cleanup there. Okay, now if it's going to be it's going to be customer query. So the command, and it's going to be written type, which is customer response. Right, in alt enter, let's do the implementation. Implement interface. There you go. Okay, again, you've got a handle here. So just go back to our to the endpoint. Let's go do alt enter. That'll bring in the namespace and the result. That's perfect. So if we go back here in the handler, let's do the same thing we did in the command. So we're going to bring in a customer repository where we're going to retrieve the saved customer from in memory. So it's all good sitting in one repository. So customer repository, alt enter again. Customer repository. Right, oops, something went wrong there. So you need to go initial field. Okay, that's what we need. Okay, now if we type in customer repository dot get by ID, if we pass in the ID, which is actually in the request, request. I was typing. Sorry, request dot ID. Okay, so that will actually, let's remove this throw. That will bring back, if you step into it, well, you'd see that it's bringing back customer. So based on ID. So if we go back, and if we actually type in customer, and oops, it's a customer you want, and the variable name is going to be customer. Just do an alt enter. I forgot to put an assignment. Okay, that's assigned as a wait, and you just make it async on the top as well. Okay, so you get customer back, but we need to map it back to the response model. So we're going to do pretty much what we did in the command. So let's copy and paste what we have in the command. So let's type in customer. So if you're wondering what I did there, just pressed yeah, so there you go. So that's the handler. So just copy it and paste it. Yeah, so all we need to do here is just return the customer. Well, just return the customer response. We do the map to response, and then we pass in the customer. And yeah, terminate the statement. And that is the return type customer response. That's pretty much it. Let's go back to customer query and customer control. Like, great. Okay, let's go and stick as a that's a mediator which sends to customer query, and the customer query, if we step into it, and this is where customer query is, and then if we go to the customer handler, and we've got this logic to get the value back and map it back to the response model, and then that's the mapping that happens. And yeah, so that's takes response model back. That's cool. So let's go back again to the control itself, and this time let's change the OK. Return OK. There we go. We just need another. Okay, then let's remove the return OK. Save it. Okay, let's actually run this now. Okay, let's take a breakpoint in get endpoint. So let's bring in the Swagger again. So let's do a full test now. Let's do the post and get the response back from post, and also get the response back from get as well. So pass an ID 1. So let's do something test first, and test last. Execute. Okay, we've got a response back. Status code 201. Let's go back to get. And if we try out, if we pass an ID 1, if we execute, that hits the breakpoint. Great. And if we try and step into it, that goes to the query, customer query. and we step into it again. That should hit the handler. There you go, hits the handler. Let's take a breakpoint where the actual logic sits. That's where the actual logic sits. It gets based on the ID. So if you stick a breakpoint where the handler is, and there you go, hit the handler. And if you hover over the customer, you can see the values are coming back from the memory itself. Okay, now if you continue, and you should see the values back. That's all come back. Great. That's all it is. Thanks for watching this video. If you do like it, please subscribe to it and click the bell button